They are popular in every state in the nation, but could home assistants be snooping on your everyday life? Joining me is John Simpson. He's with consumerwatchdog.org. John, your organization actually went and looked at the patents for these things and the applications that the companies are filing with the government, and you found some alarming information once you did that.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think it's clear that these things are already snooping on you to a great extent. I mean, if you've
right, we
got
call
them...
it privacy. I mean, we call it convenience, but privacy is another concern altogether.
Exactly. I mean, and I think many people don't understand the cost of what they're giving up in terms of access to what they're doing and their personal information in return for what they perceive to be a convenience. So some of that is already going on, but what we did with the patent research was we looked at the patents that are part of the public record, which sort of outline the technology and how it's going to be adapted in the future.
Right.
And that was what we found particularly troubling.
What did you find? I saw in the notes that I had that they want to almost build a profile of every American household.
That would be, I think, exactly what the goal is. And they contemplate sorts of things like, snooping on your kids to decide whether they're up to something that they would call the ability to infer mischief on the child's part by listening to see if the child was relatively quiet but moving around. They're envisioning hooking some of these digital assistants up to other devices and being able to essentially perceive that a kid might be interested in, say, a sports camp by the fact that they're walking around with the basketball in their hand. They're talking about being able to know, how often you flush the toilet.
Right,
it really gets into very revealing kinds of personal data that they're going to be able, at least according to these plans outlined in their patents, to gather.
It's important to point out that when you agree to terms of services, every device has that screen that we all kind of skip over, but you're giving them permission to listen 24/7. This is not just when the app is on or when you're in the room. We're talking about all the time. You are saying, yes, go right ahead. For my convenience, you can violate my privacy.
Well, exactly right. And look, I mean, one of the things, we think two fundamental problems right now. In addition to our patent report that we released last week, we just this week filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission.
Okay.
Because we think that what's going on here, particularly with this big push in the holiday season to get these things into people's homes, is actually a violation of Section 5 of the Federal Trade Commissions Act, which doesn't allow unfair and deceptive practices.
Right, but these people are agreeing to this. I mean,
well, no, they're agreeing right now to take the Google Home or the Amazon Echo into their homes under the current sort of circumstances, which, yes, they'll be on all the time, but they may not be doing quite the intensive snooping that we foresee. And so what we think is going to happen is these things will all be out there in the homes and people will have them around, and then they'll start to do the sorts of invasive assembling of your dossiers on you, if you will, that have been outlined in their patent plans. And our point is that companies don't go out and patent something unless they intend to use it.
Right.
So that's one way that we think that right now this is a tactic, and that's deceptive and that's illegal. The second thing we think is that currently these devices are probably violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which provides that you can't gather personal information about a child without a parental permission. And we don't see how that would be happening under the current use of this. Possibly if a parent is present with the device while it's listening to their own child, there might be some parental consent given. But if you have a situation where a child has his friend into the house and their conversation is being recorded and analyzed, as it is when these things are turned on, we don't see how that possibly provides for adequate parental consent by the parent of your child's friend.
Right.
So
right.
we think there's two fundamental violations right now, and we've asked the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, to investigate and to act to protect consumers.
I can already hear people in my own household saying, look, we bring these things to our home for convenience. Yeah, there's going to be a sacrifice. We live in 2017. Everything's listening and recording our data. Why worry about this particular device?
Well, look, there is the argument about convenience and the notion that there are sometimes trade-offs.
Right.
But we think that if you want to make that kind of a trade-off, you need to be fully informed
and read the terms of service.
Well, yeah, but who reads the terms of service that closely? Right. I mean, those things were crafted by lawyers paid by the word to obfuscate things. They're not particularly clear. But even if you did understand it, there's nothing to prevent the company from changing those terms of service in the future and you not really realizing that that has happened. Look, if you want some kind of convenience right now, here is the thing that we recommend.
Okay.
Don't leave the thing on, plugged in.
You're talking about physically unplug it, not just,
just physically
put it on
unplug
mute
it. And if you want to sit down and you want to do a little bit of research where you say, hey, Alexa, who is John Simpson from Consumer Watchdog Wikipedia? And then it'll read it back to you. Fine, okay. But then understand that if you leave it plugged in and walk away and you talk, it's likely, not likely, it is listening to everything that you do. They will tell you right now that, we only listen and record and analyze. We only analyze all of that data when you use the wake word. So in the case of Google Home, it's Hey Google.
Right.
In the case of Amazon's Echo, it's Alexa. There have been instances where that's found not to be the case. Early on, Google was sending all the data back and analyzing it, despite of what their terms of service said. And Amazon's, one of their patents is about how they can listen, analyze the data locally, and identify certain key words, and then send those words back, the text of those words, without sending back full conversation, so that they would be sort of observing the absolute letter of we don't record the whole conversation, but certainly not the spirit of it, by focusing on those specific words. And it's pretty clear they want to do that, or they wouldn't have done the patent.
Right.
So
and again, the whole argument on that end is convenience, but you're saying there is a trade-off, and we have to be, keyword here, aware that these things are happening in our own home.
Exactly. I mean, look, I make an analogy to cell phones. I mean, if you let the app on the various apps that you have on cell phones give you, I mean, they will often want access to your location all the time.
Right.
Not even when you're using the app. Well, I mean, that's crazy. Sure.
And yet I hit yes all the time.
I mean, if you're asking for directions, you have to tell it where you are, but you shouldn't share constantly with a particular app where you always are. And there are ways you can go in and manage that kind of thing. And the crudest way to do that with these home digital assistants is only plug it in and use it when you want to be getting some sort of response for your convenience. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine who after we came out with this report, told me that she had a dinner party with one of these things on, and all of a sudden the Amazon Echo started talking and telling everybody, oh, you should sign up for Amazon Prime. I mean, they had done nothing other than sort of be in the room having a normal dinner party conversation, and this thing was prompted somehow based on what it ascertained to start pitching ads about Amazon Prime. That's a little bit, more than a little bit, invasive to my point of view.
Fair enough, John. Well, listen, hopefully we can stay in touch. I'd like to see you where, as you continue to look into, what the FCC, FTC, and all of the other federal organizations that you're in contact with. I'd like to see how this plays out for you, because at the end of the day, we do want to protect some privacy, but this discussion isn't going away anytime soon. I mean, this is something that
I don't think so. And for people who wanted to sort of follow the latest developments, I'm sure you'll stay on top of it as best you can, but you've got a lot of things also going on. They can look at our website, which is consumerwatchdog.org, and we've got, for instance, the filing with the FTC is available there, and some of these other sorts of things. So thank you very much for this opportunity to talk with you.
Absolutely, and we'll put a link to our site, to your site. Thank you again, and yes, let's stay in touch.
If you found this post informative, please like, comment on, and share it. This post was crowdfunded, so if you like what we're doing, please consider sponsoring one or more posts so we can make more. Sign up using the URL on the screen.